Linguistics is actually the scientific study of language, which means that linguists look at language differently from how people, say, in literature or in writing look at language. We privilege spoken language over writing, and we look at the ways that people interact with one another in different kinds of social situations. We look at how language is structured, from its really basic elements like the sounds of language all the way to the way that the language is used, and through words and phrases and clauses and structure, and then to what linguists are really interested in is how language works in interaction, and how we negotiate our identities and how we define who we are through our language.
That's right, and one of the common consistent things about all language used everywhere is that it changes. And these changes in language are dependent upon many things, but they're dependent upon the development of, for instance, technology in a society, or the development of religious beliefs in a society, or the development of social pressures and changes that happen in politics, or in education, or in entertainment. And all of these things affect the way that we use language. So one of the benefits of looking at language from a scientific perspective is that we can observe how language changes as a result of these other pressures on society.
Absolutely. Another important facet of linguistics is this idea of cross-cultural or intercultural communication. What happens when we get speakers together who have different language backgrounds and different cultural backgrounds. And taking a linguistic perspective toward language helps to look at different ways to engage in those kinds of interactions, looking at how to build your skills as an intercultural communicator, and how to then make those transactions between people of diverse backgrounds useful and productive, that we can capitalize on diversity and use it as a way to improve whatever situation it is that we're working on, but having those skills that we can fall back on in order to make that communication successful.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And one of the benefits of looking at language from a scientific perspective is that we can separate our examination into a prescriptive approach to language and a descriptive approach to language. The prescriptive approach to language is the approach that tells us we have to use language in a certain way, we have to follow certain rules, we have to use commas here and there, the way that our grammar teachers told us about. But descriptive approach to language allows us to simply observe the way that language is working, and it frees us up from a lot of the sense of responsibility that we may have to get language right, so to speak, and just look at how it works.
I've taken 2 linguistics courses here on campus. I've taken a linguistic study of modern English and also language and society. For me as an engineer, I'm going to be working in an industry that's increasingly becoming more global. People who come from different linguistic backgrounds and different upbringings, so they're going to be speaking differently, and it's important to have good communication so that things don't go wrong and things are more efficient and safer, really. I think that everyone should consider taking linguistics courses, and I really enjoyed them.
English 3301 is titled A Linguistic Study of Modern English. You might think of this as the Intro to Linguistics course. Essentially what we do in this course is we go through the levels of analysis in linguistics, from phonology with speech sounds, through to words and phrases with morphology and syntax, and then on through to pragmatics, which is language use in context. As we proceed through those different levels, we use a couple of particular dialects as our sources for language data: African American English and Chicano English. So this course gives you a good glimpse at what is the field of linguistics, but then applying it to some really specific speech communities that create a lot of interest for us in discussing how language works in the world.
English 3302, the history and structure of the English language, is a course that looks at the development of the English language from its beginnings, and actually its prehistory, up through and including the versions of modern English that are spoken today. And this is a great class because it brings alive language change in its long development, so that we really get to understand not just the morphology and the linguistic aspects of things, but we understand the people who are speaking this language, both in the past and today.
English 3303 is the grammatical structure of English. And what we do in this course is look at English from its structural components, words, phrases, and clauses. And the primary way we do this is through creating form-function tree diagrams, they're called, where we take individual sentences in the language and we practice different structures by diagramming them out into this sort of tree-like image. A lot of students find this really fun and engaging, almost like a language puzzle. And then along the way, we also talk about how these linguistic structures apply to our speaking and to our writing. English 3304 is usually the last course students take in the sequence of courses. It's called Language and Society, and we look at how language intersects with other kinds of social factors like race and gender and cultural background and religion, for example. And so we look at how we use language to shape those features about ourselves and about who we are. This course also has an intentional focus on research methods in sociolinguistics, so students get the chance to choose their own research topic on any language phenomenon in the world and to write a paper that discusses how that language works in society.
You know, language is something that we all use, of course. So we have this inherent understanding of doing it, but we don't have a vocabulary for explaining what that is. So a linguistic minor gives us that vocabulary, and it gives us a mode of parsing out and analyzing and describing the way that innate thing that we do, language use, works in society. This is beneficial beyond just our own understanding. This is something that potential employers find very attractive as well. So you set yourself apart from other people looking for a job when you bring with it the ability to parse and understand the way that language works in a society, the way that different cultures and subcultures might use language, and the ability to interact with those different cultures and subcultures is very attractive to potential employers.
Absolutely. So we hope we've encouraged you to consider taking some linguistics courses or enrolling in the linguistics minor. If you have any questions about linguistics or about the courses, please feel free to contact either of us, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you in class.